Welcome to Married and Family Living with the Grasleys on 92.7 WSJF, a show focused on the domestic church, the family, which is the foundation of faith and spirituality.
We hope you find our stories encouraging and helpful as we share our challenges of married and family living.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, Linda.
What time of the day is it?
Who knows what time of day? So this is episode 12. I can't believe we've been doing this for, 12 months, a whole year, I guess.
I know. I remember when you brought this idea to me, and I thought, 12 episodes? Do you think we can do that? And somehow we came up with all those topics.
And we got another topic for next one already, too. Just came up.
Hopefully.
So hopefully. We'll see how this one plays out. So this episode, this is how things usually work here. I just want to give a little background. I brainstorm about it, and then Linda goes through and makes this beautiful outline, and we kind of rehearse a little bit. Not too much, but a little bit. We can give our secrets. It's been 12 episodes. And this episode kind of started out that way, but it's a total mess. So we're going to see how it plays out.
Yeah, we should have cut and pasted. We have some glue sticks left over from last school year.
Right. My copy's got a lot of red pens out. We got red pens out right now.
Pens.
Just in case we got to change it up in the fly.
Well, we wanted to continue. Last episode we talked about it was a hodgepodge, and we had some requests of things to share. And one was, how do we incorporate our faith into our schooling? And I think we've talked about that quite a bit over the year, but we'll go over that kind of quickly. And then I think they wanted to know because maybe they didn't know that we homeschooled. Homeschooled, right. And that was the next one, to kind of tell about our homeschooling experience. And then, as we had mentioned in the last episode, we'd like to talk a little bit about after high school. We may not get into all of it this episode, but
that might be episode 13.
13, lucky 13.
Exciting.
Yeah.
It was interesting. So we were talking about how we incorporate our faith into the schooling, and Linda and I were talking about it. It's like, well, we kind of live our faith, so we try to incorporate our kids into the faith we're living.
Right.
Which includes school.
Yeah, and I was kind of racking my brains. I know I'll share with you those ideas a little later, but I was thinking about what other people, particularly people of the Catholic faith, have done with their families. But the only thing I think that we did that might be a little different in our homeschooling was to do daily focusing and devotion on the gospel reading of the week. So we would read it on the Monday. We'd read it every day, but really for the first time, read it on the Monday before that Sunday. And then each day do a little discussion, maybe craft or writing, maybe if it linked to a feast day, talk a little bit more detail about that. So that by the end of the week, or maybe the first of the week,
maybe by Sunday, Saturday, they understand the gospel.
They understand the gospel, and it's really neat to see the kids, kind of look at each other knowingly about the reading, and then even the homily. They really paid more attention to the homily to see what more they could glean that we hadn't really thought about.
Yeah, and I mentioned last month too. We kind of engaged the kids with the homily. Like, what did you pick up from the homily? Because we were talking about how do you get your kids to behave at church,
right?
So that's one way to get them engaged. And one thing now, of course, this was during homeschool, so I would be off to work, but I tried to gather everybody together before I left for work and do just a quick family blessing, and I would lead the family blessing. And then for a while, we would do what the Harbaughs used to do. Is right. After the blessing, I would say, who's got it better than us? And the kids would have to say, nobody. So, but it's kind of, they've gotten bigger and older now, and it just seems to kind of fade away. It's harder to get everybody back together and do that
at the same time, right? But you'd always say that, all right, everybody, we're going to circle up, and you do a prayer that was relevant to our day, understanding, who had something exciting or difficult in that day, and just give us a little blessing for the day, which is nice.
It was pretty quick too. I don't like to overdo it with the words. It's just like, keep an eye on us today. And so I'm just trying to say, you don't have to be like this preacher when you're giving a daily blessing.
But I think it's important for the kids to see you as the leader of our
I think
journey in faith.
Definitely important is for the dad to lead the family in that, even if it's it only was a couple of minutes.
I assume it comes somewhat naturally for most moms,
Right.
Because we're nurturing.
Yeah, but there's something different about the dad leading the family prayer that I don't know why the kids seem to respond to it maybe a little bit differently and more. Most of the time they follow.
So in co-ops, we were in what's called cooperatives. I'll explain that a little bit later in the episode. The ones that we participated in would have devotions each morning, just usually on scripture and a little bit of a reflection. Sometimes a student would give the reflection or a parent. So that was always really very nice.
Did we move on to topic 2 of the pink thing here? I'm not exactly sure where we are here.
No, we're still
on
here,
one.
yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. Okay, let me get the page
correct.
correct.
No, I'm
here.
just saying you were talking about how we incorporate into our day. So those are kind of the unique things. Those 2 things for homeschooling: doing the homeschool, focusing on the gospel of the week, and then when we're in co-ops, we did devotions and reflections. But our everyday thing is the morning prayer.
The morning prayer, yes.
And our evening prayers or devotions with the kids. You usually do with Kate, and I do with Matthew.
Right.
And
yeah, Catherine bought that book that we talked about previous thing. That's
right.
that's amazing. If you want your kid to pray every night, get him a book with a devotion on it for every day. Just go in there and read it. It's only about 70 words. And then we just would say our night prayer.
Right.
And say goodnight.
We know other Catholic families that use very specific Catholic curriculums like Seton. So the faith is incorporated in everything they do, in their writing, in their math, in their science. They study saints, for whether it's a feast day or just interest. We did that with Kate for a little while. As you all might remember, I wasn't raised Catholic, so I didn't really know much about saints other than the saint that was named, our church was named.
Saint Joseph?
St. Paul and St. Joseph and,
what about St.
Mary.
Lawrence? Remember St. Lawrence,
St. Lawrence, because Al went to St. Lawrence grammar school, right? So, so we studied that for a little bit. So, or even field trips, going to the Shrine of St. Anthony.
They have a noon mass there.
Right? Yeah.
And we did a field trip with, was it Girl Scouts or was it?
American Heritage
Girls. That's right. That was kind of cool.
Yeah. We went there once on our own and did the
tour.
We did a tour and the
Stations
of the Cross. Right.
Yeah.
So those are, just some ideas. So anyway, we can go on to our homeschool experience.
Okay, so we're on to number 2, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about your homeschool experience, Linda.
What people would ask us. Well, I remember when we first decided to homeschool.
I was all excited about it. Not.
I remember a friend of mine, her husband told me, I'll give you a year. That's
really?
What he said.
Who was that guy?
I was devastated. I thought, oh my gosh, he thinks I won't even make it a year.
So what grade was that we decided to do the homeschool?
Matthew was entering kindergarten and Catherine was entering 5th grade.
So 5th grade.
And then people would ask, and you would always say,
it's going great. Yeah. It's the best thing we ever did for our family is what I would say.
Yes.
That's what I would say. And then Linda would be,
we love it. You would say, we love it. Everybody's doing great. It's the best thing we ever did. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my gosh, if you could just be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, so there was, Linda, of course, was doing most of the homeschooling. I was the principal.
Most of the homeschooling?
Yeah, all
just
of it. Okay,
most of it. Okay. Just saying.
I was the principal. So if the kids had a problem with their teacher, they'd come to me. And then I'd say, well, I don't think there's really a problem. But it was kind of fun that first year because the principal would have meetings with the kids, which we would just go to Panera and get a cookie or something. And then the principal would have a meeting with the teacher. So Len and I got to go somewhere, Panera. I think we went to Panera quite a bit, have a cookie. So
if we were having difficulties, the principal would be called in.
Oh, yes. The principal got
You're always a good buffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The principal says you have to do your math sheet by 10 o'clock this morning or else no lunch for you.
Be nice to your mom.
Be nice to your mom. But it was... So why don't you tell your experience? From my experience, I thought it was great, but the day-to-day minutia.
Right. So I really was excited about it. And when we decided, it seemed like anytime I had doubts, literally, I would meet a homeschool mom, and they just encouraged us.
And that's what you do today? You encourage people today?
Yes, I do try and encourage people. if they're at all interested, to at least try it. You know, it really depends on the kid and the family and what the issues are. But, you know, we did public school, we've done private school, we've done homeschool, we've done homeschool co-ops, both academic and, you know, like electives, specials kind of things.
And then we've done no school, right? I mean, we had to just skip a year that one time.
No, that never happened. I'm too type A for that.
You just skipped it. Let the kids do whatever they want for a year.
We've done dual enrollment. We've done online. And now even Katie's doing like a trade training.
Right.
So we really have done
a whole bunch
lot
of
of different things. Anyway, once we started, it was hard because what I was trying to do is to create what we already had in public school, which was not working.
Which wasn't working, is why we decided to homeschool for that. And I would say, too, also, you had this pressure that I think you put on yourself that the kid had to master everything you were teaching. Like, they had to know everything about it, I think. And if they didn't get it...
It was my fault.
Yeah. But
and
it wasn't your
failing
fault.
Them.
Yes, but it wasn't your fault because if you talk to any fifth grader, or you talk to any kid who's couple years away from fifth grade, they're not going to remember what they learned in fifth grade.
That's what you would always tell me.
The kid's not going to remember it. Don't worry about it.
Exactly. But really what it was is we just took too much on instead of really starting slow.
Well, I think part of the reason we got involved in so much is because you wanted to make sure you were going the right way with the kids.
I wanted to make sure that they hit every topic that we were supposed to hit. So, and what I didn't know were the different styles of homeschooling. So if I had known that, which we can go over now.
Yes, let's go over those because I'm not sure what the different styles are.
And the different learning styles. So within homeschooling, there's a lot of different styles, but we'll just cover a handful of them. And one is the traditional. And like I said, homeschooling does not equal public school schedule or structure. It just doesn't work. Believe me, I tried.
That was one of so sometimes I would sub. Just let me tell a quick story.
Oh, yeah, you did sub.
Sometimes I would sub. Linda had to go to be with her parents or something, so I would take a day off for school and sub. And it would bother the heck out of me that the kids are like, yeah, I'm going to do that later. I'm like, you're going to sit down and you're going to do this right now because that's the time allocated.
Right.
And Matthew was the one who was like, yeah, I like doing this in the afternoon, Dad. And I would get so mad, but it was, but now that we know the different styles, it just seems so foolish to get so mad about this stuff with the kids. But all right, so go ahead. So I just wanted
But you can use traditional curriculums. And I mean, even some states, they require you to use their curriculum, whether it's online or, but I mean, in Maryland, it's extremely flexible. You can use pretty much anything you want. But if you try and add all the specials that, you know, the art and the music and sports and stuff, you're running everywhere all the time. So you really have to kind of pace yourself with that. It's really hard to keep on a traditional schedule where you're just thinking of the bell ringing and you only have 50 minutes for each class, and that's difficult. But a traditional style would be using textbooks, essentially.
So we did use textbooks, though, for homeschool, didn't we?
With some of it, yeah. But we started with what's called the classical education, and it's ancient tradition of seeking truth, goodness, and beauty. Doesn't that sound beautiful?
Oh, it does. It sounds beautiful. Did you have to learn Latin? What, the classical?
Latin was part of it.
Oh, yes. I remember torturing the kids with Latin cards all the time.
There was a lot of truth in it, but the goodness was there sometimes. But the beauty, not always.
Not always.
It was tough. It was really tough. For us, it usually was very stressful. But essentially, it's a liberal arts thing. You use great books. There's the stages of classical education where grammar is, you know, generally kind of elementary. They're doing a lot of memorizing. You do jingles and little ditties and things to memorize things. The logic stage is where kind of middle schoolish, even into high school, where they're asking the why. They've learned a lot of facts, and now they want to understand why. And then the last stage is high school and even into adult. I mean, we're still with rhetoric, you know, trying to stand on our foundation and fight our what our position is, or
rhetoric?
Defend it.
So
rhetoric.
Arguing?
It's with arguing.
Is that why the kids are so argumentative?
Well, they're inquisitive and then also very determined to stand their position.
So you are listening to Married and Family Living with the Grasleys on WSJF 92.7 FM.
Thanks, Al and Linda. Just wanted to put in one more plug for the radio station. This is WSJF 92.7 FM. And if you like what you're listening to, if you like this show and you want us to produce others, then please send a donation to the radio station. You can do that by going on our WSJF Facebook page, by dropping a check into the offertory basket at any Mass at church, or by dropping a check at the front office at St. Joseph Catholic Community, 915 Liberty Road. Thank you very much. Now back to the show. Al and Linda?
So get back to the jingles. Is that, I remember coming home one day and there was all those Schoolhouse Rock videos lined up on the YouTube channel and the kids were just sitting there watching it over and over and over again.
Yeah, we used to do grammar jingles with Shirley Grammer, but yeah, we did try some Schoolhouse Rock things. There's math jingles and...
Shirley Grammer? Shirley, you can't be serious. Was that really her name?
Shirley, yeah. Shirley Grammer. It's a very popular grammar program.
So we went back and forth. We did the traditional with the...
well, not really. We did classical.
And then...
When we were homeschooled, I tried to do some unit theme or topics. So Katie really loved animals. So we did zoology. And then we tied everything to that, whether it was history, science, math, art. We tied everything to that. And Matthew...
He did space.
Right. Loved astronomy. So he did like a scrapbooking thing, first grade.
Yeah, that kid, that year, I remember you saying that year was like they just could not get enough learning.
Not only could they not get enough, me being type A, having everything on a spreadsheet, organized, lesson plan and all. I had the whole year planned out around zoology and astronomy. By December, they had finished everything except for math. Everything. They devoured it.
Yeah, so they were bored too after December.
Yeah. And that's when they went back to co-op. So, they said they had enough of me. They wanted to go back to their friends.
It was good. It was good. But that really, I think, they really got close during that semester. It was only 3 months, but it was good. They're very close to this day. And that's one of the things that I really think is a definite benefit of homeschool is the siblings are very close.
Right. So with focusing on a theme or a topic, you can also do a lot of field trips and to augment that. And that was fun. We went to the zoo and NASA and Astronomical Society and all sorts of stuff.
A couple days off. We went down to Williamsburg, Virginia.
For history.
That was cool. There's so much history around here. You could go to a whole bunch of Civil War battlefields and everything. It's
right, yeah.
Just doing a day trip.
So there's also Charlotte Mason, which is no textbook. It's all books. They call them living books. They're stories about history, science, whatever. It really makes it come alive is her point. And there's a lot of things with nature and arts and music. We know people who, focus on their instruments and knitting and really just getting out in nature.
Nature?
And so that's Charlotte Mason. And then there's unschooling, which sounds like you just let your kid do nothing.
Is that what it is?
You let your child choose the topic.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
For some people, it works really well.
That's true.
Yes.
Well, Matthew would choose astronomy or...
Yeah, what would he choose now?
Science. I don't know. I think he would choose that same thing. Well, music, yes.
Rockets.
Rockets, the rocket launcher.
But anyway, it's essentially you pick a topic, but then you learn through everyday experiences. There's no textbook or anything like that. You just go out and do. That's really great for kids who might want to go into a trade or craftsmanship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those are, how many did we do there?
Oh, 5-ish.
5.
I'm sure there are more. But
traditional, classic, the theme unit, Charlotte Mason, and unschooling. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's good.
That's good. So I did have a list too.
Did you? What was the other thing? Didn't we want to talk about? Well, let me see here. What's next on this list? Why do people homeschool, Linda?
Right.
Could you tell me that?
There's a lot of different reasons. We just talked about maybe a kid is very talented in some craft, so you want to focus that unique learning. We had a friend that homeschooled for a little while because she was heavily involved in gymnastics.
Oh, right.
We know people that have very specific musical talent, so they may already be on a concert tour or whatever. And so those unique learning things might need a special focus. Or family logistics. We know military families that homeschool just because they're moving around a lot.
Yeah, and one of the podcasters that I listen to, Todd, the family guy.
Oh, yeah.
He does it because he goes on tour. He takes everybody, throws everybody in the RV, and they cruise all over the country. That sounds like fun, doesn't it, Linda?
I think it
could you imagine if we could put a spreadsheet on there of where we went?
I tried to get you to do that with an RV, but you had this work thing.
Yeah, work thing. Yeah. So.
Oh, well. Anyway. And, some people are just leery of public school for whatever reason or experience, and maybe they can't afford private school. That doesn't mean homeschooling is inexpensive or cheap by any means. It's still a cost, but it's significantly less than private school.
Yeah, we'll say the co-op too. When we talk, the co-op we went to, they went twice a week, and it was like a traditional school. You had to have a uniform. There was a bell. You had to be there on time. They switched classes at specific times.
Right.
They ate lunch together. That's another thing too that I really liked about the co-op was there was a lot of mingling of different aged kids.
Yes, and relationships with parents too. Adults. They really were just very used to them being their teacher and mentors, and
right. And they would talk to you. That was one of the things too that I really liked about the co-op.
Right. You might have a child with health problems, whether it's physical or emotional or mental, or a family member, a parent, where they might be ill and need to be home, so it's easier to have your child at home. And we're hearing more and more of kids with anxiety, maybe bullying troubles.
Yeah, any of those reasons would be reason to homeschool. Luckily, we were able to homeschool because Linda was a full stay-at-home mom, so that worked out really well for us.
Yep.
It still is working out well for us.
Well, we saw it seemed like a podcast and a study and something else all came out at the same time. Oh, and HSDLA, which is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, I think it is, had an article on this study that came out by Harvard and the New England Journal of Medicine on behavior in school. And many states now are requiring kids to get into school at 5, and we're hearing more and more of pre-K options and even preschool options in the school. So younger and younger kids are being put into a school setting.
A full day school.
Yeah, full day.
Which sometimes is not right for the kid.
But this study, and it was over 400,000 students that they studied over, I think, a decade. They said they're 30% higher risk of being diagnosed as ADHD starting just a year earlier.
Yeah, the cutoff date. Because that was the book with Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh, yeah. He talked about, in one of the articles I read, about the outliers. Was that what it was
the
called?
outliers.
Yeah. So, if you start your kid later, they kind of have a leg up because they're that much more mature. But this study was kind of showing the opposite of that all of a sudden they're getting an ADHD label when their behavior is really just age-appropriate behavior.
Yeah, so like 8 months is like a huge difference at a kid who's 5 and at 5 years and 8 months and just 5 years old. There's a huge behavioral difference. And because they have a specific cutout date for the schools, sometimes you're getting almost a 6-year-old and you're just getting a 5-year-old. So they're just not on the same spectrum. Right.
So with behavior, if your kids are struggling with behavior in school, it may not be, that there's a problem with them. It's just they haven't matured yet in their behavior and their self-control, and that's okay. It may not be until 7 or 8 years old that they can handle
sitting
that
in
kind
there
of
all
setting.
day.
So families, and we met a lot of families with kids that, they said they were disruptive, they had behavioral issues in the school setting, and that really wasn't. They were really smart kids, and
they were bored.
And they were bored or just had no self-control.
I think that was my problem back
that
in first, second, third grade. Yes, I was above the fray down there in St. Lawrence, way back in St. Lawrence.
St. Lawrence days.
Yes.
Well, and the other thing is we wanted to say that we homeschool, but we really all homeschool. If you're an engaged parent helping your kids learn, whether it's homeschool or helping with homework or teaching a skill at home.
Or doing the science project so your kid gets first place.
No, you can't
is
do
that
that.
considered homeschool?
Well, it's our job as parents to really figure out how our kids learn best. And we went to this co-op. Like I said, it was very stressful, and we backed off and homeschooled, and we did this unit study kind of.
The unit theme.
The unit theme. And I learned so much about how my kids learned in that one semester than I had in their whole lives at that time. You probably know there's 3 different learning styles: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And kids have all of them, but they'll clearly have a dominant
One's dominant.
one. And I saw that clearly in my kids. Yeah.
And they're different.
So then I was able to go back to the co-op and say to the teachers, this is how my kid best learns. So, even in the public school, you can do that. You can help your teacher help your kid by letting them know. And when they have these large classes, I know it's hard to cater, but at least if they had some understanding, the kid might have less stress on them.
And then you could help strategize the best way for that kid to learn a subject if they're struggling in it. Like,
that's right.
Yep. You're having trouble with math, so remember, you got to stand on your head and say them upside down.
Yeah. Well, in my kids' case, I remember, and this is when we homeschooled, I would be reading to both of them, and they weren't paying attention.
No.
Katie was drawing, and Matthew was doing Legos, and I'd be like, you guys aren't even listening. Yes, Mom, you said this. Oh, they are listening.
They just need to be doing something.
That's that kinesthetic part that they're using their hands or having to move. Other kids really have to move. Maybe I know a family, they have a yoga ball and they can sit on that and rock. Some people mold things with Play-Doh or whatever. Yeah. So
I think my learning skill is visual. So like when I'm watching football on Sunday afternoon and you're talking to me, I am listening. I am listening to you. Just quiz me next time.
You do actually mute it, so you must be listening to something. But that's very common, though. That's the most common learning style is visual. And so that's what people mostly teach.
So they do it, you watch it, and then you figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we're not going to get to cover the college
part.
So I guess we'll do that next episode. But 12 episodes, we got to talk to Father Neville. I'm not sure if we're going to get renewed. I don't know
we'll have to see what happens with our contract. Yeah.
See what goes on with that.
Yeah. So, we're kind of looking forward to this, school after high school, we'll call it, or training after high school.
Well, are we? Well, we're looking forward to talking about it. We're living through it right now. It's a little stressful.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Again, fear that we're ruining our kids, right? Yeah.
Yes, we're going to ruin them for life. I know for a fact my kids are going to be in therapy for a long time.
Our kids are doing great. They both are doing great.
Maybe we'll get them in here to do a show. So
not a chance.
Well, we hope that you were able to glean something off of here. It was a little scattered, but you have to do what's right for your kid and try to figure out the learning process for your kid, and then you could really help them out. You can come up with strategies to do it.
Right.
And do you have anything else you want to add?
No.
It's been a great show. Thank you so much for listening. Please tune in next month with the Married and Family Living with the Grasleys on WSJF 92.7.
Thanks, Alan.